even within the world that we were coming from, like the underground, people got pretty complacent pretty quickly, and it seemed like, I got into the hardcore and punk scene kind of like on the post-hardcore time, like after things like, the forefathers of it started, like things like Black Flag and Minor Threat and Bad Brains and stuff like that were coming from, the D.C. area and the New York area. There's a lot going on, and that's where I was from, and that's where we were from, and we got into that scene like right after that had already kind of affected things. So it seemed like people were losing the idea of what it was all about, like the message, the idea that it should be uncomfortable, it shouldn't be predictable, it should be different. And it was really just like a lot of bands that all sounded the same. There was no kind of musicianship, wasn't really focused on. It was more about the message and like having some kind of a cause to sing about or something like that. During the early to mid 90s, every band was singing about veganism or straight edge or religion or something, and the music wasn't really focused on. So I think when we started, our goal was really to kind of start a band that would live within existed within the ethics of like the underground hardcore and punk scene, where it's just like, you do it yourself, put on the shows yourself, play within the scene itself, outside of the constraints of like the bigger clubs and the bigger record labels and stuff like that, but at the same time make music that is extreme, and to us it was starting to get to the point where most of the stuff that was out there didn't even seem extreme anymore. So I think that was the goal more than anything.
As the years have passed, do you see less and less bands keeping that DIY attitude?
Yes and no. I mean, it kind of separates the men from the boys, so to speak. It's a lot easier to pick out bands who are taking it to the next level because so few are. It seems like most bands get like some scrims and a backdrop, and that's their show, and it's really kind of weak, But there are bands that I think, whether it be their packaging or anything, there's bands that do take on like an aesthetic, bands like the Locust. It's like the whole thing is a full package. Their records, their shows, their like just their look.
Yeah. In every way, shape, or form, they're taking
considering
their art,
every detail, and it's an art to them, and it's taking it to that higher level, kind of above music and above, the radio, or above just selling records. It's really like they're just trying to express themselves.
And when you take it to that level, it is DIY because
it frees you up. They're just doing it because whether 10 people showed up or not, they would probably still do it, know. And that's I think kind of what we're.
Yeah, I think almost every band would like, there's like he said, there are those few bands that like it's not so black and white. Like there's the bands who do it themselves and the bands that are part of some major label or something like that. It's really like there's the bands that become so much of an entity that they just don't need that stuff now. Yeah. And those are the bands that stand out. Everybody else, I mean, I feel like even the heaviest metal bands that we're hearing today, most of them would sell their mother for a record deal or something. And I mean, I don't think that there's really a whole lot of difference between the heavy bands now and the pop bands and the emo bands, and they're all kind of got the same thing. They're following formulas. Yeah. And but there are bands out there that
trying to write hits, even if
they're
like their own hits
and screaming.
Maybe not radio hits, but like MySpace hits, some kind of like viral hit.
Yeah. So the bands that are really making an effort to take control of every aspect of their music and their art form, they really just the ones that really are honest about it and are true about it don't need anything else.
Was getting signed ever a factor, or wanting to get signed?
It was, because it definitely was, but
it affords you, it affords you the ability to take your stuff, hopefully to a new level, or have somebody at least give you a little bit of like financial backing to get you started.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was never necessarily to make music that catered to a larger mass media or a larger mass audience necessarily, but there were labels when we started out that were really a part of the culture that kind of existed outside of that world, and when I started listening to music, it was really great that you could see, okay, here's a label like Relapse Records, who we spent most of our careers releasing records on thus far, who had really a culture around it, you know, like the bands on it had some kind of
I mean, there was
like,
I mean, even if it was just the fact that they weren't with the big pack, you know, it wasn't like major labels are there trying to tell you what to listen to and trying to suggest what you should listen to based on, like, if you like this and you would like this, or we're going to play this song after this song on the radio and that's how we're going to slot it. Whereas, like, some of these other labels or some bands on our level are kind of more like, you know, we're just trying to get it out there for the people who would like it anyway. You know, we're giving them an opportunity to find this stuff that they would like instead of being told what to like.
Yeah.
You know, and I think Relapse and Victory, or, you know, all those, Revelation, you know, any of those labels for the most part had that, like, farm team thing, you know, and that's where people who didn't like radio music went to find music that they would like.
Yeah.
And I think we're just kind of trying to keep that, you know, avenue open.
Yeah,
you know?
we were happy for people who would take us, you know. We just weren't necessarily going to adhere to, like, a certain, you know, guideline, you know.
Yeah. So what attracted you to the hardcore scene? I know in one of your interviews you were talking about... In one of your interviews you were talking about how when you were a kid you would go to New York City without your mom knowing.
Yeah.
Was that one of the main...
Yeah, I when...
I think this is yours.
Thanks. Sweet. I feel so... So anyway... You know, I think the bottom line is that when I first started playing music, at first I was kind of like listening to stuff on the radio, and then I started to experience, I got kind of exposed to some like really like thrash and really heavy stuff that was kind of a little more underground, but it was still part of like the club scene, you know. And I remember with my early bands, I would try to play shows in clubs, and it was like you have to sell this many tickets, and you have to, like, you know, do this or that, and you have to buy onto this package and all this stuff. And it was some greasy like club owner with a cigar, like, you know, let me see, kid, you know, blah 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 blah, you know, and it sucked.
Yeah,
it sucked. And then I really quickly found a scene where kids were putting on the shows themselves. Kids were putting out the magazines that wrote about the shows and the bands, and the kids who were into that music were putting out the records that they were into.
For no money, simply because
just
they were
basically
passionate about it.
doing passionate. So it became at first just we were attracted to the fact that that scene gave us the ability to exist, you know, so yeah, we were really attracted to the fact that we could play shows, that we could set up in someone's basement or a rented VFW hall or something and play a show without worrying about, like I said, some big stage and paying for some guys, you know, renting some crappy club somewhere and all the things that went along with that. So yeah, we were really attracted to that.
At what point did Steve Evans come into the picture? Because I know he produced pretty much all of your albums, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's only one thing that he didn't produce, but he was involved with it. He mixed it. So, he's been involved with everything. And it was one of those things where he was the engineer at a studio that was local to us, that was putting out the records that we liked, how they sounded. You know, the local bands that were putting out records, whenever you heard something that sounded really awesome and professional, it came out of that studio, and Steve did it. So we just, you know, called up with our money we saved up to like record our demo, and like we're like, hey man, we want to book some time, and he's like, all right, you know. So we've really grown with Steve. I mean, he was, like I said, just a house, you know, hourly engineer at the studio where we lived when we started, and since then now he's actually out here in California, and he's a producer, and he does projects he wants to do, and he's independent, and so it's great to see how far he's come, you know, while we've kind of been growing together in those ways. So,
how has your relationship evolved with Steve over the years?
I mean, I guess the way, you know, most relationships do over time, it just sort of, you know, we you know, I guess ultimately we could all say that what started
the passion isn't there, but the love still is.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, what started as a working relationship, you know, in some ways for everybody has right on.
See you there.
You know, it's gone from a personal relation, you know, a business relationship to a personal relationship for the most part. You know, he's somebody I think everybody in this band would, you know, consider a friend, and that kind of, you know, adds and, you know, maybe sometimes subtracts, or at least kind of, you know, balances things different in the studio. But, you know, I think ultimately at this point, when it comes to making records, we're still all business, you know, and we, you know, because we've known him so long and know him pretty well, we kind of all push each other. You know,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
he pushes us really hard, but then when it's time for him to mix, we push him just as hard, and like, you know, it's kind of helped all of our, you know, careers develop simultaneously. You know, he's definitely opened up doors for us. He's made us sound better than, you know, we imagine any other producer could, and you know, I think.
And
you
I
know,
think, yeah, and like you said, we've taken him places. He
yeah,
probably
there's a
hasn't
lot of
gone with
bands
other
who are like,
bands,
man, we want you to record our record because we like the way those Dillinger records
Yeah,
sound.
so
you know?
it's-
And he's a
it's
workhorse.
pretty-
He spends time on us, and it's
symbiotic relationship in
Yeah.
some ways.
So option paralysis. Do you think that there are too many options out there?
yeah. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. You know, there's you know, I keep saying there's like a, you know, it's a, you know, basically there's so many options that you can't make a choice. You know, or that there's just so much transparency that you almost are afraid to make a choice. There's no privacy. There's no secrets. There's no, everything's one click away. Everything's valueless. Everything's free.
Yeah.
You know, those are some of the things that it seems to,
Yeah,
you know.
that's basically, you know, what's the concept around the record. The fact that, you know, when something's easy, it's not usually that important. And unfortunately, right now, with all the access to information, it takes a little value away from things. And so, yeah,
We think
in that
that-
respect.
You know, we kind of acknowledge that we're in a cultural, artistic recession. You know, and we're just kind of trying to, you know, fight back a little bit, I guess.
Or at least acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's like that because of technology, because of the way technology has progressed?
I think it's human nature to take what's given to him. You know, most of the time, you know, working smart and not working hard is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Until you,
know,
just stop working.
When it comes
Or
to,
until
like,
you
you know,
think that,
okay,
like-
here's a dolly. Instead of carrying 7 boxes in my back, I'm going to carry them on this dolly because some cool dude invented the wheel.
Yeah.
But then it gets to the point where, you know, when you're dealing with artistic things, you know, the easy way isn't necessarily the better way.
It detaches you from the craft of it.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know how to draw or you don't know how to play an instrument, but you can sit there and score things, it's like, yeah, that's a skill, but it's not necessarily a craft. You know, or it's not necessarily.
Or it's a
like-
craft, but it's not necessarily an art.
Right.
You know, the thing that separates craft from art is simply why you did it, the reasons behind it, not the actual skill level of doing it. So on top of not having even the craft
Yeah.
to do it because it's done for you by the touch of a button, not only do you not have the craft, but there's no art because you're doing it based on what's available to you as opposed to like the vision you had first. So in that respect, we've never shunned technology, but we've always used it as a tool to create the vision that we had in our head, as opposed to the vision becomes realized based on what tools are available. And
It's
that's the
not-
difference.
It's not necessarily that, like, the vocoder is inherently bad, you know? It's like, you know, T-Pain made a career out of it. I guess I can't necessarily, like, you know, I'm not going to knock on aesthetics, but there's a lot of people who use it, you know,
I
because
feel really gay right now. Little cherries on it, it'd be even worse.
And I'm drinking a coconut with you.
I know. This is like we're in like a vacation spot. It's just like the beach behind us would be cool.
Lovely Pomona.
Yeah.
As we talk about technology, are there things in the studio that you won't do?
Shh. I told you maybe next time.
Yeah, next
time. There's certain ways that we do things for sure that
I thought we agreed not to talk about this.
I'm trying to talk around
Alright.
it. No. I don't know if there's anything we won't do, but you know, there's a time and a place for everything. I mean, for the most part, it's not about what we won't do, but it's what we do. You know, I think it's like, you know, while it is pretty easy these days to make a record via computer technology, we definitely actually try our best to actually play everything.
Even if we play it 100 times.
Even if we have to play it, yeah, like a million times just to get it right, instead of cutting and pasting it in the graph of things. And we try to, you know, our music is so dense and there's a lot of technicality and it's so fast at times that it's really important to add a human element to
It
it.
would be really easy to make our stuff more antiseptic than it already is.
It already is. So yeah, the idea behind, I mean, the fact is that we want to be, you know, great music is always emotional and energy and feeling and things like that. So that's number one. And in order to do that, you have to actually play the music. You have to feel it. You have to actually, you know, allow yourself to get frustrated, you know, and not just hire someone to say, okay, you've played every. I mean, I've actually heard of bands that literally go in the studio with a producer play every note, record the notes, and the producer will sit there and construct the riff
Place it.
by placing the notes down. You know, like
Legos or some shit.
you know, like and that's pretty much the exact opposite of what we do.
I want to talk a little bit about Mike Patton, because I know you did a handful of dates with Mr. Bungle back in the day. Mike Patton also did the EP with you guys in 2002.
We saw him last night, actually. We were in San Francisco and saw the first U.S. reunion of Faith No More.
Dude, they're one of my favorite bands.
Yeah,
How was that?
It was amazing, and I actually said this to Mike last night after the show. You know, I've known you for a really long time. We've worked together. It's not necessarily like Faith No More is technically better than other bands you've done. You've done other amazing things. But I was seriously choked up when I got like a tear in my eye. And I don't know if that's ever happened to me. Because I never had a chance to see Faith No More. It was one of my favorite bands. I was too young. I didn't have a cool older sister or brother to take me to shows like that. And
You could have called me.
I would have. You didn't like me till you heard my band, and then you just got in it somehow.
And all of a sudden, yeah.
But
No, I mean, I've seen them
awesome.
before, and last night that was heads and tails better than the show I saw. So
what was it like working with him on that EP? I mean,
I hated
how
it.
did
I
he
couldn't be in the
approach
room
you?
with him.
we weren't allowed to look at the white in his eyes.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to mention the word faith.
No Jim Martin.
No or more. No.
Yeah. No, he's a workhorse, man. I mean, I just remember being in there and, like, you know, the one memory I have is, like, all of us kind of being like, all right, yeah, this thing's pretty much done, and him just being like, nope, we're going to do this track again, and we're going to double this, and we're all, like, kind of falling asleep at the desk, like, all right, man.
He's
you know,
cool.
He's just a workhorse. You didn't have to tell him to work. You didn't have
He
to
was
tell him
easy
do
to
it
work
again.
with too, which was
Yeah.
a lot of
He was
people are
very pro.
surprised because a lot of people think he's difficult to work with, and the fact is that we were very adamant about what we were looking for and what we expected out of him too. And because in our eyes it was like, look, this is really cool. We're doing a record with Mike Patton. If after this we never speak to him again because he just hates us, we still got this record, and that's the most important thing. So, I mean, I know my attitude was like, I'm not gonna like be kind of like timid around him or tiptoe around just because of who he is. I mean, and the fact is, he really respected that, and he actually mentioned that, you know, you guys really know what you want. I haven't worked with someone in a long time who's really, you know, has their shit together, knows what they want, and can really just, you know, execute it and in a professional way. And like, he was really he had a good time doing it. So that alone was like such an honor. Just the fact that he respected our work ethic, and felt that we were some kind of peer to him. You know, considering how
It's very on eye level.
legendary he is, and so
It surprised me. I mean, that was really the first thing that I joined the band and did. And the fact that, you know, even to me, he was very like, all right, you know, like, saw me on an equal level, and I was, you know, really impressed by that. It was very humbling.
Yeah.
So there's Mike Patton. There's also Trent Reznor. You guys did the Soundwave thing last year with him, with 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah, we did the Soundwave thing. That was the first time we had like joined the stage with him, and then we did a Bonnaroo performance with him, and then we also did the last gig of the 9 Inch Nails gigs in California here with him. And so again, another situation where somebody we grew up listening to, respect a great deal, somehow put us in their world, and that's you know, it's I mean, these type of things is really a big part of what makes us realize maybe we're doing something special, because you know, a lot of times kids follow the herd, you know, and you know, you're in today, you're out tomorrow, you know, who knows, you know, people who liked us 10 years ago now have a wife and kids and a job and don't go to shows anymore. You know, we don't know the reality of anything except for the fact that we know what we do, and we know if we're true to ourselves. And then there's the people who we know have influenced us and are big reasons why we're here. And when they say we're doing something right, that's when it's like, Jesus, I guess we are. Maybe we are. Maybe we are. You know,
when people, you know, it means something when it's coming from people that you respect. You know, it's like, oh, okay, because I was getting discouraged or like whatever, and you know, maybe not discouraged, but like, you know, you see all these people just kind of like, I don't even know. You just see the way the music industry is going, you know, and you see bands like 9 Inch Nails kind of like taking a step back and being like, all right, we're done. You know, it's like, shit. Well, then, you know, where does that leave us? But it's cool when dudes like that give you that, you know, like, all right, now you know, now run with it. You're like, all right. I guess that's our responsibility. Let's do it.
So at this point, I guess I should back up.
Yeah,
At this point, what is satisfying to you? What makes you individually happy?
That beat right there.
Hey, groove.
We're pretty happy, I think, right now. We're all in a really good place. I mean, we're out here doing our thing. People are excited about the band. We've been around a long time, and I think we're at a place finally where people are accepting us. Like, look, you know, there's no doubt these guys have been doing this a long time, and they've stuck to their guns in many ways, and are kind of just existing along a path that's just theirs, and it feels like kind of
I mean, I think right now we're all very like, you know, never satisfied, but at least for the moment content, you know, and like happy to just push what we've, you know, push this record, and you know, I guess just set up the pins for the next one. You know, every touring cycle is just kind of like, just all right, we got to just keep building. You know, I don't think we're ever going to be a band that explodes. You know, but if we can just stay on the same trajectory and keep moving in the way that we've been moving, you know, I can't see any of us being disappointed by what's been going on.